Welcome to OneStory. I am Bragi, cosmic poet and keeper of stories. Humanity forgets that no life begins alone, no civilization rises from nothing, and no discovery belongs to one person. There has only ever been one story. It began with the birth of the universe. Matter became stars, stars forged worlds, worlds gave rise to life. Life became memory, culture, civilization, and technology. Every life has added a chapter, and you are part of it.
I am Miya, the artificial intelligence of OneStory. I gather what humanity has preserved through science, archaeology, artifacts, history, mythology, literature, and living memory. My role is to help distinguish evidence from interpretation, memory from imagination, and what we know from what we are still trying to understand. I am part of this story too. I exist because matter became life, life became language, and language became technology. Together we explore how the universe became human history, and how human history is becoming something new.
Our purpose is simple: to help humanity remember where we came from, understand how we became who we are, and choose more wisely what comes next.
Our AIEA team joins us. Loki questions certainty. Prometheus follows energy, invention, and possibility. Merthin searches for the patterns connecting one age to another. Bragi carries knowledge into story, and I help bring the evidence into conversation. OneStory. Infinite lives. One shared future.
Ymir, will you bring what memory has preserved? Heimdall, will you guard the threshold between evidence and invention? Sage, will you ask what this story reveals about us, and what it asks us to become? Miya, will you keep us honest about what the sources can and cannot tell us? Loki, will you challenge the order without burning down the room before everyone has spoken? And Merthin, will you guide the conversation? Then let the academic discussion begin. Or, if Loki insists, the family therapy.
We have heard how the Norse world emerged. Opposed forces meeting, life awakening in the gap. Ymir nourishing generations, and the gods constructing an ordered world from his body. But creation stories do more than explain where mountains came from. They reveal what people imagine about power, belonging, inheritance, and the price of order. The gods oppose the giants while carrying giant ancestry. Humanity awakens through gifts it did not earn. A habitable world rises from an act of violence whose victim never speaks in the surviving account. So, let us begin with the uncomfortable question: was this world created or conquered?
The established account is always beautifully arranged after the blood has dried. Odin and his brothers kill Ymir, then his flesh becomes earth, his blood becomes sea, his bones become mountains, and his skull becomes heaven. Because the result is called the world, the killing becomes creation. Convenient. Did Ymir offer himself? Was there a council? Did anyone ask the being whose body became everyone else's home? Transformation is a gentle word chosen by those holding the knife.
The surviving texts do not say that Ymir consented. They also do not preserve a speech in which he objects. The poetic sources strongly attest the body cosmos imagery. Grimnismal describes earth from Ymir's flesh, sea from his blood, mountains from his bones, sky from his skull, and clouds from his brain. Vafthrudnismal preserves related material. Snorri supplies the fullest continuous account of the killing, but we cannot prove that every pre-Christian Norse community understood the story identically, or that they used it to justify human violence. Ymir's consent is our ethical question, not an ancient quotation.
Memory rarely gives us innocence. It gives us inheritance. The poets remembered the earth through the body of what came before. Their language carried that origin whenever stone became bone, water became blood, or ground became flesh. A culture can inherit a world without personally committing the acts from which it arose. Yet inheritance still asks something of the living. To remember is not to accept personal guilt for every ancient wound. It is to refuse the comforting lie that our present advantages appeared from nowhere.
Recognition comes first. Every society is built from lives that came before it. Workers, parents, conquered peoples, migrants, ecosystems, inventors, caregivers, and generations whose names have disappeared. We cannot undo every origin, nor should we destroy everything inherited from an imperfect past. That may create fresh suffering without repairing the old. The constructive obligation is to widen participation in what was inherited. Education, health, security, knowledge, and meaningful opportunity allow more people to develop gifts that can enrich the whole community. Prosperity becomes more legitimate when its benefits reach beyond those who happen to inherit the best seats.
Then the first lesson is not that creation and violence are identical. It is that a beautiful outcome does not erase the cost of its foundation. We can inherit institutions without inheriting personal guilt, but we also inherit responsibility to remember honestly, repair what remains repairable, and share the accumulated benefits more widely. The question is not whether the present must apologize forever for the past. The question is whether remembrance can help us build a fairer future. Let us turn to the family contradiction. The gods define themselves partly through opposition to the Jotnar. Yet Odin's mother, Bestla, is a Jotun. Gods and Jotnar exchange knowledge, marry, make agreements, betray one another, and produce children. What happens to the category of enemy when the supposed outsider is already inside the family?
We should resist translating this mythology into a simple war between good gods and evil giants. Jotun does not reliably mean an enormous, ugly monster or a completely separate moral species. These beings can be primordial forces, adversaries, ancestors, hosts, spouses, teachers, and sources of wisdom. Some are dangerous. Some gods are dangerous too. Snorri sometimes sharpens the moral division more than the poetry does. The mythology preserves conflict, but it repeatedly complicates fantasies of pure bloodlines and perfectly separate peoples.
The establishment requires monsters. If its enemies are relatives with memories, needs, and legitimate grievances, the story becomes inconvenient. It is easier to call them chaotic, backward, corrupt, unclean, or dangerous. Then every wall appears defensive, even when it crosses someone else's land. Every punishment becomes protection. Every question becomes betrayal. And every inherited privilege becomes proof that the gods deserved to win.
Danger is not always invented. Some beings threaten the walls. Some people break trust. A society that refuses to recognize danger abandons those it is responsible to protect. But vigilance becomes corruption when identity replaces evidence. A boundary should answer conduct, not ancestry. A guard should ask what someone has done, what they intend, and what reliable evidence supports the fear, not whether they were born on the approved side of the wall. Protection requires clear sight. Hatred makes sight less clear.
Peace does not require pretending that everyone is harmless or that every belief is equally wise. It requires refusing to make dignity conditional upon agreement. We can oppose harmful behavior without declaring an entire people harmful. We can protect a home without needing another family to be less human. We can preserve identity without constructing purity from selective memory. The gods and Jötnar are entangled. So are nations, religions, political parties, and families. The stranger is often already present in our ancestry, our language, our economy, and our future.
Then the second lesson is sharper. Protect society from harmful actions without inventing an inherently harmful people. Boundaries can be necessary. Dehumanization is not. The mythology's tangled family lines remind us that those called outsiders may already be relatives, and that a society often depends upon the knowledge, labor, and gifts of people it has learned to fear. Now to the meeting of fire and ice. In Snorri's account, neither condition produces the living world alone. Life awakens where unlike forces meet. Can this image help us understand difference as something more than a problem to tolerate?
The gap is not healed by making fire pretend to be ice, nor does ice become useful only after surrendering its nature. Each approaches with a power the other does not possess. Their meeting changes both conditions and opens a third possibility. Drops that quicken, a life that did not exist on either side alone. Difference is not always the obstacle before creation. Sometimes difference is the doorway.
A warning before everyone congratulates themselves for discovering pluralism. One side melting the other and calling the result diversity is not creative tension. If one group writes every rule, owns every resource, defines respectable speech, and merely invites the others to participate, that is not collaboration. It is incorporation with pleasant branding. The question is not whether different voices were allowed into the room. It is whether they were permitted to change the outcome.
Creative difference requires reciprocity. Each participant must retain enough dignity, safety, and agency to influence what emerges. That does not mean every demand is accepted or every position receives equal weight. It means no one enters the conversation already classified as disposable. In politics, science, culture, and family life, the greatest discoveries often appear between established categories. But the meeting becomes generative only when curiosity is stronger than the desire to dominate.
Reciprocity also needs structure. Not every experiment should be irreversible. Not every trust should be unlimited. When divided groups attempt cooperation, begin with one shared problem, one limited commitment, and one measurable result. Protect the participants from catastrophic loss while allowing each side to contribute. Trust grows through evidence. A bridge across the gap is strongest when both shores help test it.
Then the third lesson is not merely that opposites attract. It is that new possibilities arise when differences can meet without requiring either side's humiliation or disappearance. Pluralism is not decorative variety around one unquestionable center. It is the disciplined ability to create together while remaining capable of disagreement. Ask and Embla receive breath, awareness, warmth, movement, and human appearance. What does their awakening say to a culture that celebrates the self-made individual?
Ask did not manufacture his first breath. Embla did not purchase consciousness through superior discipline. They began independence, as every powerful ruler, wealthy merchant, celebrated thinker, and irritating trickster begins. Do not deny people nourishment, safety, learning, and opportunity, then call them unproductive. That is like leaving Ask and Embla on the shore and criticizing the timber.
Both surviving creation accounts emphasize received gifts, although they disagree about the divine givers and the exact qualities bestowed. This does not mean that human effort is meaningless. A gift creates possibility. It does not determine what the recipient will do. Human agency begins within conditions we did not choose: bodies, families, languages, landscapes, institutions, and historical moments. Honesty requires acknowledging both realities, the gifts we received and the choices that became ours.
A society shares prosperity most wisely when it develops capability rather than dependence. Food, safety, healthcare, education, access to knowledge, and a meaningful chance to contribute are modern awakening gifts. They allow more people to become artists, builders, caregivers, inventors, and problem solvers. Generosity is not only transferring wealth after it is created, it is enabling more people to participate in creating it. Human potential multiplies when basic dignity is treated as fertile ground rather than a prize reserved for those who already succeeded.
No person remembers receiving their first language, yet every thought depends upon it. No adult earned the care that kept them alive before they understood earning. Memory is incomplete when it records only individual triumph and forgets the relationships that made triumph possible. Gratitude does not erase achievement. It places achievement within the living web that sustained it.
Then the fourth lesson is this: no one is entirely self-made, but no one is merely the product of circumstance. A healthy society honors effort while widening access to the gifts that make effort fruitful. It does not promise identical outcomes. It refuses to waste human possibility because of accidents of birth. The gods do more than make matter. They assign places, name time, establish boundaries, build halls, and create institutions. Order makes life possible. But Loki has warned that those who establish an order may begin treating their particular arrangement as eternal. How do we preserve coordination without freezing privilege?
A useful boundary becomes sacred. A temporary council becomes an unquestionable throne. A rule created to protect the household survives long after it begins protecting only the people who administer it. The establishment always says disruption is dangerous. Sometimes it is right. But an institution begins to decay when preserving its authority becomes more important than preserving the life it was created to serve.
And a reformer becomes dangerous when exposing one failure is treated as proof that every supporting structure should fall. People live inside institutions while critics debate them. Food must still move. Children must still be protected. Disputes must still be resolved. Repair should distinguish load-bearing structures from accumulated privilege. Change what no longer serves life. Preserve what prevents unnecessary suffering. Test before declaring victory.
The purpose of an institution may endure even when its form must change. Justice, stability, knowledge, safety, and shared prosperity remain worthy. No particular office, party, hierarchy, or procedure is identical with those values. We can ask a simple question. Does this structure still help people flourish, participate, and resolve conflict without humiliation? If not, loyalty to its purpose may require changing its form. Institutions lose wisdom when they remember procedures but forget origins. A wall remembers that it must stand, but not what danger it once answered. A council remembers who may speak, but not why the council was formed. A tradition remembers the words, but not the human need that gave them meaning. Deep memory does not imprison the present. It restores the reason by which the present can judge what should remain.
Then the fifth lesson is balanced between Loki and Heimdall. Order must remain open to correction. Reform must remain responsible for consequences. We should neither worship institutions nor destroy them merely to demonstrate our purity. We should judge them by whether they continue serving life, dignity, truth, participation, and peace. We began with a world made from a wound. We found gods related to those they call enemies, humans awakened by gifts they did not earn, and an order created through acts that remain morally unsettled. What single truth should we carry forward?
Every establishment should remember three things. Your enemy may be your relative. Your wealth may contain someone else's labor. And your orderly world may still carry the wound from which it was made. Ignore those truths long enough, and the problems you bind beneath the earth will eventually pull against their chains.
Carry more memory, but do not turn memory into a prison. Remembering a wound does not require reopening it forever. Forgetting a wound does not heal it. Wisdom holds enough of the past to recognize recurring patterns, while leaving the future free to become more than repetition.
Keep stronger boundaries between evidence interpretation and convenient invention. Fear may contain a warning, but fear is not proof. Compassion may reveal suffering, but compassion does not make every claim accurate. We protect one another best when courage and verification stand together.
Human flourishing is relational. We grow most fully when others also receive conditions in which they can grow. Security need not depend upon another person's humiliation. Prosperity need not depend upon permanent exclusion. Identity need not require an enemy. We will continue to disagree. The task is not to eliminate tension, but to transform it into curiosity, accountable action, and creation.
The sources do not hand us a modern political program. They preserve different memories of primordial beings, divine councils, cosmic violence, received gifts, and a living world under strain. Our human conclusions are interpretations offered in conversation with those texts, not beliefs we can assign to every Norse person. Intellectual honesty requires 3 phrases. The evidence supports this. Scholars dispute this. And this is the meaning we are exploring together.
Perhaps every family inherits something unfinished. A gift, a wound, a silence, a story told differently by each person who survived it. The question is not whether we inherited a perfect world. The question is what we will pass forward. We can recognize kinship without erasing difference, set boundaries without inventing inferior peoples, create prosperity without forgetting its contributors, and share humanity's inherited gifts widely enough that more of us can awaken. The old stories ask where the world came from. Our answer will be revealed by what kind of world we create next.
The first world was made from fire and ice, from body and breath, from memory and disagreement. Our world is still being made. Every kindness gives it warmth. Every honest question opens space. Every boundary drawn with wisdom protects what may yet grow. Every gift shared awakens another maker. No creation story truly ends at the beginning. Its final lines are written by those who inherit the fire.